Jonathan Goodman here, and I have something really, really cool for you today. This is a recording of a group call that we did in the mentorship. One of the things that we realized was that so many of the people in my high-end mentorship are parents, and particularly parents of young children. And so what we did was we did a group call just sharing strategies for time management. We commiserated. And so while I give some of my strategies, I don't pretend to be perfect with time management with young children. I have a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. We had a lot of others come in as well, sharing strategies, sharing what they're going through. And altogether, it just came as a really, really nice call to be a part of. Some really good tactical bits to take home and chew on and put into play. But also just, if you ever feel like you're alone sometimes in this journey, I think you'll feel a little bit less alone after listening to this. So please enjoy, and I hope that this helps you as much as it helps me. Awesome. So today we're talking about time management, particularly time management with young kids, although, time management is time management. But so if you don't have young children, if you have older children, or don't even have children and just want to learn about time management, then this will fit. I want this to be more of a conversation. This is one of those topics where I don't have all the answers. I definitely don't have anywhere close to all the answers. I'm happy to share some of the stuff that I do and that I've done. But I want to give a prelude to that and say that these are things that I do when I'm going well. And they're not things that I'm able to do all the time. And so there are things, it's valuable for me to kind of keep note of them, because I find that if I ever catch myself in a not so optimal state, which happens, and I'm like more brain foggy than usual, or I just feel like I don't have time to do everything that I need, or I feel scattered, which absolutely happens a fair bit, then I can reconnect to a few of these things. And I'd love to hear from some of you as well, of stuff that you find kind of recalibrates. And I want to say that because this is not, the point of this call is not to say, hey, we get this perfect. Instead, sharing, hey, when things are going well, here's a few things that I notice, I think will be really helpful to bring up. And that way, all of us then benefit from each other's what happens when things are going well. Isms. I don't know, is that a thing? When things are going well, isms. So I'll start with one, and then I want to hear somebody else has another one. Throw up your hand. Who's going after me? I'm going to call on one if nobody puts up your hand. All right, Ashley. Sweet. Thank you. So I'll start with one, Ashley, and then I'll kick it to you. Cool. It's super valuable for me to identify my best working time of the day and to protect that time. And that time might only be like 30 minutes. Like, it really isn't that much time a lot of the time. For me, it's first thing in the morning. Ideally before anybody else wakes up, although if I'm honest, in the winter in Mexico last winter, I was getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning to write, and that was like the best for me. But the last couple months, the boys haven't been sleeping that well. Calvin particularly, Jaden sleeps well. Calvin, stinking gets night terrors and stuff like that. And so he almost every night he's up like multiple times. And so I haven't been able to protect that best time in the morning. And so what I do instead is, it is certainly not ideal, but first thing when I sit down to my desk, which is after often a workout and getting Calvin and stuff ready for school, and then biking to school with him and coming back. I don't look at my phone. I don't turn on my email. I don't do anything. I get straight into that most important thing. And like I said, it's not the best time. The optimal best time is 5 in the morning, but that's just not happening at this stage for me right now. So the second best time is right when I sit down. There was something that I heard, it would have been probably a month ago or so. I had a chance to sit with Ryan Holiday for a couple of days, or for almost a full day. And I've known him, a fair bit over the years, but one of the things that he said really hit me, because he's super disciplined, right? And one of the things that he said, and he has 2 young kids too, is I realize that fires are only fires if you know about them. Because somebody asked him about work stuff, and they said, like, it seems like every time I turn on my phone or I open up my email or whatever it is, there's just like something that I have to deal with. Somebody needs something from me or whatever. Like, how do you deal with this? And that was his response. And I've come to call this Schrödinger's fire, which is, the old Schrödinger's cat. Like, if there's a cat in the box, you don't actually know the state of the cat, whether the cat is there or the cat isn't there until you open the box. But by opening the box, you fundamentally change its state. Same kind of idea. Schrödinger's fire. It's only a fire. And so my team is probably frustrated with me. I haven't asked them about this, but I'm much less responsive ongoing. But when I respond, I'm much more thorough in my response. And that has made a big difference. Is this idea that if I don't know about it, it doesn't affect me. But the minute that I know about it, like, I feel like I have to deal with it right away. And I can't really get past that. I can't really file that for later. So that's been helpful for me. Happy to talk about any of these things. Is there anything that anybody wants to comment on that or share? I mean, it could be a share. It could be something specific to you. This is, I don't want this to be me talking. I want this to be saying, hey, that has worked for me at this time, this way, or just share some experience of yours would be really cool. If anybody has anything, you just unmute yourself and talk.
Hey, Jonathan, I do
Okay.
want to chime in. Actually,
Who's
for
going
me,
on?
it's the same thing. That morning is actually a key component for me. I try to get meditation and exercise and everything else. But I might be at the same point, something awesome in my mind comes up and I'm like, oh, I got to do it now. And then
Yeah.
2 hours go by and I'm frustrated because that time that was important to me, I've compromised it. I kind of feel bad about it. So for me, like you said, I try to make that morning the best time, but sometimes my ADD kicks in and now the whole morning is blown and I end up focusing on other things. So I get what you're saying. Absolutely.
What's an example of something that might come up? Do you have any like memories of this happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually was this week. I get up, like you said, I usually get up around 5, 6 o'clock because the rest of the household is dead, right? My
Yeah.
wife's out and everything.
It's
So
the best,
that's
isn't
my
it? That's the
me.
best time.
That's the me time, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
So that's when I get my meditation. I can get a little bit of time in, focus on me. Obviously with all clients and everything, I try to lock my mind out of everything else and take that time. But it's also while I'm meditating, something awesome comes up as let me just tackle this right now. And I've blown the whole morning.
Yeah.
So, like you said, a perfect example was a client sent me a text late last night asking me they had some issues with their exercise program. They wanted to make an adjustment, and they asked me, could you change it? And in my mind, I said, I'll handle it later. But I said, you know what, let me just get it done right now this morning. And here an hour goes by. And then an idea of a topic for my next blog came up. And I'm like, this is great. So now 3 hours is gone, right? And I try not to do that. But then I'm like beating myself up later, like, this is my time. I'm letting somebody else take it away from me, right? It happens, absolutely,
Yeah.
but I try not to let it.
I went for a walk. Mug Fisher, if anybody knows him from Mug Fisher Fitness, was in Toronto in the summer, and I went for a long walk with him, and then I took him to Chinatown to get foot massages because that's what I do when friends visit from out of town. And he was in town for a workshop. Basically, he's part of this program called Strategic Coach, run by somebody named Dan Sullivan. Really, really well known, like business, basically like CEO program. And he was telling me that in Dan Sullivan's like high group, I mean, these are people with businesses like 8 figures plus, at a minimum. There's 100 million, multiple $100 million plus businesses that are in it. He says one of the fundamental tenets of it is lots of time off. And the time off, what I thought was most interesting about it was Mug was explaining to me what a day off is. And he's like, a day off is not just like disconnected. A day off is usually centered around some sort of activity that you like doing. Maybe it's hiking, maybe it's fishing, whatever. But he says, you're not even allowed a notebook. You're not allowed to make notes. And he said, according to Dan, I mean, you can look up Dan Sullivan. He's one of the most sort of notable, well-known, well-respected, like management consultant guys, CEO whisperer type people. He says, according to Dan, he says, if it's important, you'll remember it. And this is one of those things that I would lie if I said that I'm good at, but it's always stuck with me because it's true. There are so many times when I wake up in the middle of the night and I just like have these ideas, and I used to for the longest time have this notepad beside my bed, and I'd wake up and I'd scribble down stuff, and then I'd wake up in the morning and I'd look at it and I'd be like, what the hell was I thinking? What a dumb idea that was. So I just wanted to share that. And thank you for sharing, Wallace. Jordana, were you going to say something before?
Yeah, hi everybody. I was just going to say something that really struck me when my daughter was much younger. She's 10 now, still young, but when she was much younger is that there is no sense of this work-life balance thing. Like the word balance doesn't really exist, and trying to create that whole idea that you can have this magical balance, like our body's supposed to be in homeostasis. Well, our life is supposed to be in homeostasis, but what does that actually mean? And I started to actually put it through the lens of trade-offs instead, and looking at it from this perspective that, okay, I'm spending this time on work right now, and then I'm trading off the remainder of my day or my time in favor for family. And the time that I spend with family, there's only one or very few of those moments, like your kid's only going to learn to walk one time. You don't want to miss it. Your kid's only going to learn to ride their bike one time, or like all of those firsts. When I was so skewed a lot more to the work effort, I was missing some of those things that were literally why I was working. And so rebalancing that idea of and coming back to it often, that I'm trading time off for one thing versus another, helps me come back to the focus that I need to place on that work effort and what is the most productive work in that moment. And we're all entrepreneurs, like the ROI is the most important thing, right? Like we have to come back to like, what's the most valuable use of our time? And I always think of it that way because it really recenters me and on the bigger picture, but then brings me even more down into the task level to be like, okay, is doom scrolling going to be helpful right now? Or is responding to my client check-ins or making new content or, developing a new program or lead gen? And it's usually always the latter.
Thank you for sharing that. Ashley, you wanna go for it? Harris,
Yeah. So what I was gonna say was very much along the lines of what Jordana said, but it came down to when I first watched that initial time management video from Jordan Maxwell. And I did like my ideal schedule, right? And in my head, I'm saying, no, I can do it all. Like I can work until 5:30, even though my kids come home at 3. Like I'll just keep working while they're home. For those of you that don't know me, I have 3 kids. I have a just turned 3-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 10-year-old. There was no efficient working once they came home. What was happening was I'm sitting there while they're screaming at each other playing Minecraft, and I'm trying to respond to clients or whatever, and I'm getting irritable. And then I'm getting mad at myself because I feel like I'm now a bad mom and a bad coach because I'm not getting anything done efficiently either way. So I had to go redo my time management training and be like, okay, this was the ideal, like in this rosy life where I could do it all, right? But what does my life actually look like? Do I want to be this irritable mom Or do I actually have to call the end of my day 3 o'clock
Yeah.
and just be more efficient from 9 when I drop them off to 3? Nothing's happening before 9 because for some reason, if I try to get up at 5 a.m., my 3-year-old like magically knows. And like 5:10, he's yelling, Mom, Mom,
Yeah.
I want a lollipop. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how, like, will you sleep until 7 every other day? Like, why today?
It's like the
So
only time my kid doesn't sleep in is on weekends.
like, why? Like, how do they know? But like, so I had this beautiful time blocked schedule that was like the ideal life, right? And then I
Mhm.
had to go back and be like, what's realistic? What is going to allow me? Because like Jordana said, we've chosen this because we love to coach, but we
Mhm.
also want to be with our families, want to be the parents that are present, right? And I'm not being present when I'm sitting here trying to respond to my clients or making something dumb on Canva that I probably shouldn't be making anyway, right? So it came back to just realistically time blocking. My kids are home at 3. My day cutoff is at 3. Would I like to work for 2 more hours? Sure, if I could actually get something done, but realistically, I wasn't doing anything efficiently. That's my story.
Thank you for sharing that. What I liked about that was that you went back and just reassessed. I remember when I built like an office outside of my house because I want to be close to home, but I don't want to be in my home. And so I built this like pod outside. And I remember when I built it, I was all gung ho. I like ordered a bunch of stuff for it and I was putting it together. And my dad's like, you shouldn't put that nail in that wall yet. Like, why? He's like, you don't know how you're going to use it yet. You think you know, but you don't know until you've used it for a while. And my dad's really smart, so I didn't put the nail in the wall. I hate how right he is all the time. But just last week, I actually went back to the office. I was like, hey, I've used this for like a year and a half now. And I moved everything around and I reorganized stuff and I took out the garbage bin that I've never once used and just rejigged it. And now it's like, now it's set up perfectly for how I use it. And probably in a year, I'll go back and do that again. I think that idea of just, yeah, it's totally fine to make a schedule that we think is optimal, but it's going to change. Yeah.
And
Thank you for
kids
that.
are going to change. Like my 3-year-old will be 4 next year and will be a little bit more manageable. Will not be waking up 3 times a night,
That's
hopefully.
what you
So
think.
my 10-year-old still wakes up sometimes. So, it's like it never gets easier. It just gets different. But yeah, like with the different phases, I think we always need to just be going back and changing those time blocks to what does my life look like in this season of my life?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else have a share on, well, really anything, it doesn't have to be on this specifically, but on this or something else?
I have something to say.
Sure.
I find that making sure you're protecting 20 minutes to half an hour of your time with one-on-one with your kids is so important. And when I get caught up, like Ashley was saying, I totally resonate with everything that she said. My day kind of has to end at 3. And when it doesn't, I only take calls with clients that are, having the same ideas as me, where their kids are going to run in and ask them for stuff, or tonight I'm doing a cooking class, and
cool.
my clients know that the kids are going to run in and pretend to help because they don't actually. But outside of that, I have to have that one-on-one time so they feel important. So then they understand what it's like to have one-on-one time, and then they go, okay, so now mommy's having one-on-one time with people that she works with to help them feel better too.
Mhm.
And that really makes sense to them because they felt it. So that's where I'm at.
I've also found that when I include Calvin in anything like that, he's really excited to be included, and then he loses interest in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he's like lost interest. But if I don't include him, he will bug me for the full hour.
Absolutely. Yeah. 1000%. And I'll be doing something and they'll be like, well, I'll do it myself then. And it's a disaster. And I've had those disasters happen in the background and we all laugh, but I'm slowly coming up here and everything's fine on my face, but inside I'm screaming. And I don't want to be screaming at them, obviously, but I do yell at my kids and I wish I didn't. Right. And I mean, all parents have gotten to that point, but I don't want to be that kind of parent. And it also wears me down. Energy management is gone at that point. And so I think it's also about protecting your energy as well as your time with your kids and with your work and deciding where that's going to go. So
what a cool idea. Just to pick out one thing that just like, I've never thought about this before, but what a cool idea to actually have on an intake, or maybe just do conversations, you like flag it or whatever it is, other people who have this kind of like chaos in their life, and to say to them, do you want to do a kids free call or a kids call?
yeah.
And actually to almost build your schedule around that, because for your clients, I guess I wonder too whether it might be easier for them to not have that pressure of having an empty room, knowing that it's okay with both parties, that there's going to be interruptions and kids are going to jump in and stuff, and just getting in front of that and being like, hey, this is when I do kids free calls. This is when I do kids calls. What do you want?
Yeah, I do let them know that. And I never really thought about it as part of what it is, but I need to know if they have children because it does affect everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
a cool idea.
Go deeper about it. Thank you.
Never thought about that. Okay, I'll pop in one more just note that I wrote down, and then this is fun hearing you guys. I'm learning from this too. There was a period a couple months back where I found that I was really just worn out by the afternoon. Like almost every single afternoon would hit 3-4 o'clock. And as my wife knows, I'm a morning person and I'm quite happy to help out in the morning. And then by the time that the night hits, I'm complete potato. I just don't do anything. And it works well because she's a night person. But by like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and I found that I wasn't eating that well during the middle of the day. Both I wasn't taking the time, but also I'm so into what I'm doing. If I'm working on a book or I'm working with you guys or anything, I'm so into what I'm doing in the middle of the day. And the last thing that I want is to walk into the kitchen and think, okay, what am I going to eat for lunch? And think, there's often leftovers and stuff like that, but I'm thinking how I'm going to put it together and whatever it is. And so what I would do is I'd like grab a protein bar one time, and then I'd grab a piece of fruit another time. Then I have a handful of nuts. And at some point I would have eaten enough calories probably to not be hungry anymore, often at my desk. And then and I started to get really frustrated with it. And so one day I just said, screw it, I'm just going to order meals. I'm just going to order my lunches. And to Allison, like there's always leftovers. I was like, yeah, but I'm not making them. Right? Like they're there, but I'm not making them. She's like, oh, because I always clean up after dinner and stuff. She's like, oh, when you're tidying up at night and getting the kitchen all cleaned up and stuff, like maybe you can put together a dish. I was like, yeah, but the problem is that not every night there's like full, well-rounded leftovers. One night there might just be like only rice, another night only veggies, another night only meat. So I do that when there's like a well-rounded meal, but often there's not. So I started ordering meals just for my lunches. And it has made a huge difference. It's not that much more expensive. They're 13 or 14 bucks a meal. So more expensive for sure. And this is an affordability thing, and I get that, but not that much more expensive, and way cheaper than ordering Uber Eats. I mean, you can't order Uber Eats for less than 30 bucks at this point, 35 bucks. So way cheaper than ordering Uber Eats even once or twice a week. And that's just a case where I was like, I know that I'm not feeling as good as I should feel by the end of the day. And I started to think of what the potential causes were and worked backwards from that to say, okay, what's a good investment here? And that was the one for me. So, freezer meals, 13, $14 a pop. Take a few out, and that way I just get to my kitchen. Oftentimes, like today, I had Tuesdays, I just stack calls. So like back to back to back to back with about 15 minutes in between. So I had a call from 12 to 12:30, 12:45 to 1:45, and now 2 to 3. 15 minutes is not enough time to go to the kitchen, figure out what you're eating, put together leftovers, put it on a plate, heat it up, and eat it. But 15 minutes is enough to take something that's already there, heat it up, and eat it. And as a result, I feel good because I've eaten real food. So I guess the story with that I'm trying to tell is not necessarily get meals. Maybe that is what it is. But if you have a point in the day where you're maybe not feeling so hot, like what is surrounding that point, and then trying to kind of work backwards from that, at least has helped me. All right, who else has one? Or a response on that? Doesn't matter.
I would like to. Hi, John.
I was just gonna call on you, Bob. It's funny.
Yeah, to just make sure everybody knows a little bit about me. My family and I were traveling since about 9 years now. Ella is turning 11 in a couple of days. So we started traveling as she was 2.
She was like toddling around when I first met you in Thailand.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
exactly.
Wow.
So and for us, or for me, time management is such an important thing. And I learned from your first book, I think, or your first course I did with you, like years and years ago, I learned something very, very, very important, which helped us to save our relationship and to get having a good business. So I don't know. So I put like my dream week together, right? Put it on a calendar, but Diana did the same. She did the same. And then we put both calendars on top and looked, okay, what you want to do there, you want to spend some time alone, and so we figured out our perfect week as a couple and a family, right? So then we decided to have working days. So, and we keep on this since years and years. So my working days now are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Diana, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Saturday is off, family day, right? So, and this really, really keeps us from like distracting and all that. So the person who works is not responsible for the kid or for food. So when I work, I just can say I'm hungry, and I will get served something, So not like especially for me, but because it's lunchtime or whatever, So, and that really helps us to reduce costs. And whenever or Diana as well, when she's I used to be a chef, right? So whenever she's working, I prepare her like the breakfast, the lunch, and the dinner. If she's able to make it, we all sit together. But if she's like in a Zoom or whatever, so she can have her food whenever she wants, or she skips or whatever, So that really helped us to really like, there's always food and there's always somebody taking care for Ella, for our daughter, So that was a really big game changer to have that in a calendar based, and with the knowledge you don't have to change anything. You just keep on working and don't need to care about anything else. Yeah,
that's nice. So just the dynamic between the two working parents to really define that. Has anybody else done anything like that? Where you've tightly defined that sort of dynamic?
We've done something kind of similar. So this is more with like housework, because that does play a lot into the work week as well, right? Like housework is taxing mentally and physically.
Yeah.
We both wrote down what we hate doing. I hate doing laundry. Like John V will talk about that all day, but like I hate doing laundry.
I don't mind doing laundry. I hate folding laundry.
Like, what is it about folding it and
I don't
putting it
know.
away that
I don't
sucks
know.
so much, right? And then like I will wash bathrooms all day, I don't care, but like something about laundry and dishes. So we both wrote down the things that we hate doing and then went through it, and I was just like, I don't mind doing those things and he doesn't mind doing those
Well,
things, and
that's
we just kind of
cool.
like switched and like do those. Like, does it always work out perfectly? No, we have 3 kids, life is crazy, but we're at least, you know, Graysley, you have a couch dedicated to the unfolded laundry.
Right.
Sorry, you can't sit there. That's the laundry couch. But yeah, it's a great way, because a lot of, you know, having young kids in a business is the mental load. So that kind of eases the mental load of like, hey, at least I don't have to do the chores that I like really hate doing.
I'm gonna
I,
add to
I
that.
like the laundry couch.
Good laundry couch. I think so I just fixed with my husband last night our washing machine. Instead of replacing it, we took the whole thing apart and replaced the pump. And I
Okay.
really, really hate laundry, so it was a nice break. Anyway, so we have an app that we all use together. It's called Toddy. It's TODY. And it's a gamified app where you can list out the things that everybody's responsible for, and you can rotate through it. And it gives you a little monster that you have to defeat. And it totally changed things because now I'm not cleaning the entire house. My husband works like 60 hours a week. So I just input what he does for him. But what's really nice is that I can focus on other things too, because then I can look and see, hey, what actually really needs to be done instead of keeping myself busy and ignoring things and, you know, kind of doing housework instead of work, because it's easy to do that when you're just at home, right? So that's just the app that I like to use. And everybody that I know that has started using it has found that their experience with just chores in general is better. Anything that's gamified is just a little bit better, especially when there's kids involved. So that's what we do.
Put the link in the chat for anybody who's interested in that app. I've never seen it before, but it seems like a good idea. We definitely have very open communication about who's responsible for what in the house. I mean, Allison doesn't work, so she does manage most of the house. But we didn't used to. That's why I think, Bob, what you said there really makes a lot of sense. Like, just it's not saying that I don't want to do stuff, but let's just not feel like the other person should be doing something or I'm doing this or whatever. Like those types of feelings. Yeah. Paul, what do you got? What's going on? What's going on in your house, man?
Well, it's fascinating listening to you all because I'm maybe a generation past that. My youngest daughter is in grad school, so she's 23. But I lived through all that, and I had a corporate job when all that was going on. So I felt that pressure that Jordana and Ashley and all of you are mentioning. I think when we talk about time management, actually, it's maybe a misnomer. I don't, you know, we talk about it like it's an asset that we have available, like, you know, money or whatever. And I think that's a little bit of a delusion. There's a great book that I read that I could recommend to you guys. It's called 4,000 Weeks. I don't know if you read that, John. Oliver Berkman. So fascinating guy, but the premise is that if we're blessed to live to 80, we'll be blessed with 4,000 weeks in our lives, and I'm already up to 3,000 of mine. So it gives you the sense of scarcity, but that's a little bit of a delusion. You know, we have what we have. So all of us have 168 hours a week and 24 hours a day, and we're not guaranteed till tomorrow. So you got to make use of what you have today. So I don't know, a little philosophical there.
What were some of the things when your children were perhaps a little bit younger or growing? What were some of the things that helped you manage? Because you said you worked corporate during that time. So you had external demand. I mean, you were busy, but you also were externally busy, professionally too.
Yeah, I think pretty firm barriers, like, or boundaries. You know, there were one of the great laments I have about my earlier corporate life was that I worked a grinding schedule. It was a medical device sales job, and anyway, it was very lucrative, and it was a good life. The company was awesome, people were awesome, so I had no reason to complain other than the demands on time were brutal. And so I probably put in, for about a 20-year span, about probably 70 hours a week, and that was an average. So some weeks were more.
Wow.
And one of the real regrets I have is that when I look back on those 20 years, I guesstimate that about 20 hours of each of those weeks were working but not producing anything of real value. So I didn't sell more product. I didn't help my team sell more product. I didn't help my customers treat their patients. It was just work. And, you know, if you've ever heard of the term entropy, it's a loss of energy to the universe. So it's just gone. So kind of when I finally woke up to that and changed, where I established were real firm boundaries. So time boxing is, you know, is a tactical method, but it was really a thought process of like, hey, when I'm not working, I'm not working. So one of the things I still find myself lapsing into is a kind of a blend of kind of half-ass working, not really doing anything truly productive, but I feel like I should be working. And I'm trying to maybe multitask and have to pay attention to the misses and half whatever. And so now it's like, hey, when I'm not working, I'm not working.
I see a lot of heads nodding when you were saying that. Sounds like that's a pretty common feeling. I'm not quite sure if I'm working or not, but I feel like I should be working, and it's time to work, but I don't quite know what I should be working on. So I'm kind of half working, and what am I really doing?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, we just mentioned, you know, after 3 o'clock, she stops. So, you know, good on you, Ash, because that's, I commend you for that, because you could fall prey to that. Hey, I have this need, you know, one of my clients needs something done. And honestly, most of the time it's really not that urgent, and it could be, you know, it could wait, so you can focus on your kids. But
Well,
you know,
what I do, Paul, too, is like I turn all notifications off. So like I can't respond to that client. And I'm very clear with my time boundaries with my clients, right? But I turn off my notifications because I am too the kind of person that's like, if somebody messaged me at 8 p.m. and was like, my training plan's not up to date, I'd be like, I've got to write a whole training plan right now. I've got to do this. But I won't check my notifications until the next morning. They can do last week's training plan, like they're gonna be okay. And I definitely wasn't like that a year ago or two when I started my business. But I've learned like, okay, the world's not, there's no such thing as a fitness emergency, right? Like, so I thought there was, but there is not. So yes, while I say I'm not working, there's still that like entrepreneur, like my brain, like John, you said, you'll wake up at 2 a.m. Like, I don't know how many times at like 11 o'clock, I'll look over at Justin and be like, but what if we had this thing where we like made an app that's like, and he's like, stop, just go to sleep. It's like, go to sleep. So the wheels are always grinding, but I'm not responding to my clients at that point.
But what if there's, okay, so I had this with Quick Coach. I was like, what if we have a mascot that's a cat, and his name's Quincy, because Quincy is a cute name and also kind of a funny name. So what if we had Quincy the cat, and I have a neighbor who teaches artificial intelligence and VR for Humboldt College. So I bet you he has a student or two that know how to use AI to create characters. Okay, so this cat is going to be a combination. He's going to be a wise talking, take no shit, slow jamming cat personal trainer. So he's going to be a combination of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Quincy Jones. And I bet you I can give that to this person for their student to make a prompt. And I started to write the message to one of my buddies who's neighbors, and I was like, stop.
Did you ever share that with Amber? Because she would have been so on board with that. She would have taken it so much farther.
There is actually an Instagram account called Quincy the Cat. One day. This is fun. I found it's been really important. Let me grab something and show you real quick.
Hey, Paul, I just wanted to quick share. Thank you. You put it in a nice perspective of these 4,000 weeks. They're going to read that book. Thank you, man.
I'm glad, Bob. Yeah, it's sometimes a meaty, little cerebral book, but I really like the perspective it gave me. So, Oliver.
John, I have really bad news. I have bad news, John. Amber doesn't know who Quincy the Cat is.
Literally, my brain stopped me from filling her in on all of that. I'll send her this video afterwards. She doesn't have enough to do. So this is a huge stick that I keep in my office, and I keep it where I can see it, so that's why it's not behind me. But there was one day last year where I kind of felt like picking Calvin up from school, and he gets picked up from school. He got picked up from school at, I think it was 3:20, so it was like an early afternoon. I was like, oh, but what about all these things I need to do? And I was like, no, this is more important. And so I went and I picked him up from school, and then we went in a little like ravine kind of by our house and went on a treasure hunt. And this was the treasure, was what we found. And so I found that it really helps me to, like, I keep it in my office, because to me it's just a memento of just, hey, like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? What's important? And I constantly have to be reminded of that. And so one day I'll do a tour of my office and just all the little mementos and stuff like that I keep, like the three monkeys, you know, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, little monkeys. This is a skull that we got when we were in Mexico, and Calvin was super excited. He bought it with his own money that he made selling Valentine's Day cards. And then as we were going on the way home, he just tripped up a little bit and dropped it, and it cracked. And he was really, really sad, and came and jumped into my arms. And then we picked up as many pieces as we could and glued it back together. And it's just a memento of just, no matter how broken something feels, you can always put the pieces back together. And just having those little mementos around home and around where you work, I found has been really, really valuable. That just when my head starts taking me to places where my stupid head takes me sometimes, I can look at those things, and to anybody else, it's just a stick, it's just a skull, it's just a couple monkeys or whatever. But to me, it tells enough of the story. Has been powerful. I'd love to know if anybody else has any mementos or stories or anything like that. I'd love to hear it if you do. Tina, you got anything? I'll call on you. You knew it too. That was the best part.
Well, if you could see my wall, you would know it's a treasure trove of all my children's stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
So and the books behind me make me, if I wasn't on my walking machine, the books would make me look smart back there, because but those are all children's books. These are my exercise books. That's just bookshelves upon bookshelves of children books. But my children are 29 and 33, and I have 6 grandbabies. So I have I have twin grandbabies, and I have their little feet print right here. But that's why I work this schedule, so I can make time for them. So I work really, really hard at doing what I do, so I can make my schedule for them. So nobody else makes my schedule but me. And I have to remind myself that all the time. When people say they're just so busy, I have to say, you are in charge of your schedule.
Right.
You know, so I make time, and I have it just like you, John. I have it right here where I can see it. It's on this wall. So
I love the little footprints.
Yes, I got it all right here. And even notes from my husband are on here. So he's up there too. He's just as important, but It's everybody. It's in the, I have what I call a sunshine folder. So if I have those days where I'm just like, why am I doing this? I can, that's the things for my clients that I'll pull out, you know, that kind of lifts me up and reminds me of the priorities of why I'm working to keep my boundaries straight and to be able to keep my health right so I can keep doing what I'm doing to help everybody on the path I feel like I'm supposed to be on. So
yeah, I agree with you, Jordana. Sunshine folder is awesome.
yeah, it's my sunshine folder. We get enough negativity, don't we? So I have to have a sunshine folder.
It's not hard to find that. You don't need a folder for that, especially.
Yeah.
Hey, John, you put out a post maybe a few years ago that it was something about along the lines of like you were taking pride in not being busy.
Mm.
And I don't remember if you remember that, but that struck with me. And I think so many of us wear busyness like a badge, you know, like a badge of honor, like some medal we earned.
One of my favorite pieces of writing of all time is called Lazy, a Manifesto. And it's by Timothy Kreider, who is also one of my favorite writers. He's a New Yorker cartoonist, but also essayist. And I think that's probably where that came from. But I've since actually looked into that idea more because I do think that the word lazy needs a rebrand. But I'm not the one who come up with it. There was an officer. This is in the, it might not make it to the final version, who knows, but this is in the book. It was a German officer who was famous for two things. One is that he opposed Hitler. And the second was how he categorized his soldiers. So what he identified was that every soldier has two of the following four attributes: lazy, industrious, smart, and stupid. And what he did is the stupid and lazy soldiers, I think he gave desk jobs. The smart yet industrious ones, so the smart and hardworking ones, he put on the infantry. The stupid and hardworking ones he fired immediately, and the lazy and smart ones he promoted to officers. I actually think lazy is
officer, I identify with that.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that's cool. I think lazy is a bit of a superpower. I'm very lazy. You know, I think it needs a rebrand. Like if your motivation is that you want to be with your family, if your motivation is you want to read more fiction, then it's kind of a force function to get much better at figuring out how to get a disproportionately positive return for time invested, isn't it? Yeah, thanks for remembering that.
I think this goes for everybody, but I know as moms, we really, really feel it is, this goes along the lines of laziness is like, we don't have to earn our rest. You can watch a show just for the sake of watching a show. You don't have to also be folding laundry, or doing something productive. You can just rest and do nothing for the sake of doing nothing. You know, Darlene talked earlier about spending one-on-one time with each kid, but you need to make sure that you're taking everybody that one-on-one time with yourself, because I truly believe that's the only way that we can manage our time and be productive as parents, as coaches, as entrepreneurs, is if we are truly taking care of ourselves. Because I didn't all of September for launch. I was in like 100% launch mode all of September, and I crashed into October. So I've been making sure I schedule out time that I'm doing nothing for the sake of doing nothing. Being lazy.
Yeah. I still have yet to figure out how to watch TV. To me, if I'm not reading, then I feel like I read a lot of fiction, which to me I guess is like TV, but I don't know. I still struggle with the TV thing. I've got one more kind of tactical bit. Which is just, it's the simplest thing ever, but after the kids go to bed, and again, this is one of those things, like I said in the beginning, that I have identified when things are going well, I do this. When things are not going well, I'm not doing this. And this is the first thing that I bring myself back to do when things are going well, is after the kids go to bed, I sit down and I write down the 3 most important things I need to do the next day in order of priority. I find that when I'm disorganized and feeling overwhelmed are the days when I sit down at my computer and I say, okay, it's work time. What should I do for work? And I don't have a plan. And I have found that I can't build that plan the same day. I need to build it the day before. So for me, once my day ends, I mean, I'm a, call it 7-step walk from home. So there's no buffer time for me. Like the minute that I'm done, I'm home and I'm into the frying pan, you know, out of the frying pan into the fire. If anybody knows the Hobbit reference. It's chaos, basically, until the kids go to bed. Like fun chaos, great chaos, but chaos. So after the kids go to bed, I'll sit down and I'll just write, usually on like a crappy little piece of paper, like on a clipboard, because I'm a personal trainer and I still use clipboards all the time. There's always one in my backpack. You can take the personal trainer out of the gym, but you can't take that away, I guess. And I'll just jot down like bullet point, like, here's what I want to do tomorrow. Like first thing, work on the book, or, you know, write down a couple things that I have found have been useful in terms of time management. Simplest. I'm not the first person to say make a list of the most important things to do. But I found that I stopped doing it pretty quickly. And it's the first thing that I add back in when I want to get sort of refocused. Daniel, we haven't heard from you yet. What are you thinking, man? Good to see you.
Like I don't really
Daniel and I were hanging out in Edmonton like 2 days ago, so you know we're tight, but
we've gone through it. I feel like I don't have a ton to add to this conversation, as I don't have children and I'm not yet married, so my problems are a lot less than everybody else's. The problems with time, but there's still things nonetheless. But I mean, if there's any one thing that I'd say that I need to do better at, and I do well when things are going well, as you've been saying, John, is trying to avoid task switching as much as possible in the time that I am working. And I think this applies probably to anyone. Like if you're only working for 3 hours, try not to do like a bunch of things. I'll have to block out like, okay, for the next 30 minutes or 1 hour, I'm doing programs. And then after that, I'm answering emails or whatever the tasks are, rather than trying to be like, I'm working for the next 3 hours. And, you know, for the 20 minutes, I run email, then I write a program, and then I go back to emails, and then just switching between those things seems to create a lot of dead time for me, where it's like, you know, 3 hours of work, but only an hour and a half of productivity, because there's switching between things.
right. Yeah. Who was it that talked about task switching? Dr. Gloria Mark, if anybody was on the digital summit, hit on task switching and just how damaging it is. And just that ability to refocus in. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. Nicole, you want to finish us off?
Sure. You know, I come from kind of the same place as Daniel. I'm not married and I don't have any kids, but time management definitely has been a struggle for me, being the sole person providing a roof over my head. I also my time with OTM have had another job as well. So juggling and trying to share my time between a job that has a more consistent paycheck than what I'm dealing with. And so I'm trying to tame things and level things out, and being able to put more focus on what I'm doing here, just because this is my passion and this is what I want to see grow. The other job was really just a paycheck. So, you know, just I'm kind of in a stage where I'm trying to find I know, I agree. I don't think balance totally exists, but trying to find that right level of everything to where I can put the prioritizing the tasks, the prioritizing the effort, the prioritizing the energy. So that's what I'm working on now, and that's my work for the remainder of this year.
Well, thank you for sharing, Nicole, and thanks everybody for sharing.